very important event, which is a family photo, so prepare for it. Our first honorary speaker is the Deputy Prime Minister of the Government of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Luka Mesec, who also serves as Minister of Labour, Family, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities. Mr. Mesec. I would like to invite you on stage to say something, if you want, of course.
Okay, my apologies for this inconvenience. In upravičujem se, ker bom...
Well, I am going to speak Slovenian today. Distinguished Director General of UNESCO, Madam Ozely, Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Maria Pejčinović-Burić, Secretary General of Deputy UNESCO, Madam Stojmenova-Duh, and distinguished high-level guests. I am happy to be able to welcome you on behalf of the Prime Minister of Slovenia. This indeed is a very important conference where you're going to deal with one of the most important topics of today, ethics of artificial intelligence and regulation of modern use of technologies. Since the very first human inventions, we know that technological development can always bring two things. Technology can be used for the good of our societies or for the bad of it. We can use it for the well-being of humanity and, as was shown in our history, for destroying. It can be used to empower us or to reduce our values and make us just an appendix to our machines. It was ancient Greeks who had a very varied mythology, and Prometheus gave us fire. Prometheus is also the one who sees into the future, who sees one step further. And this story is about that Prometheus only saw one half of our future. He knew that he would give us fire, but he didn't know that he would be chained for the rest of his life. I think that his experience is very important for us to learn about the development of technology and how cautious and vigilant we need to be. This is ever more important today. If we look into our past, we will realize that once in the West, we started to build telecommunications networks. It took us for several decades. I think it took us 40 years in Slovenia. When we got internet, all households were equipped with the internet within 7 years. But artificial intelligence has become a reality overnight. Overnight, we all now have access to AI. We can speak to chatbots. We can ask artificial intelligence to write a text instead of us, to design an image, to help us in our thesis or paper. And therefore, it is even more important for us as human beings to very carefully decide how we are going to use this modern technology. Will it break us free from all the tedious tasks that we have to do on a daily basis? Or will it, on the other hand, for intellectuals, for attorneys, for other experts, will AI become just another industrial belt, as it used to be for a blue-collar worker, making the workers just an appendix to the belt? Will AI open new horizons for the development of the human potential? Or, on the other hand, will it be used for our own de-skilling, if you will? Every time we give our capability to a machine, and in this particular setting, we can delegate to a machine our capacity of writing, we are devolved of one important ability. In today's world, it is very often difficult to judge what is true and what is false. Let us use artificial intelligence to help us understand what is the truth and not to get lost in the labyrinth of deep fake. I wanted to use a quote today of Zhou Enlai, one of close Mao's associates in 1970. He had a very long conversation with Henry Kissinger. And according to a story, Kissinger asked him how he understands the consequences of the French Revolution. And Zhou Enlai said, "It is too early to judge this, sir." I've discovered on the internet, however, that this quote really does not relate to the French Revolution, but to the then situation in France. So what I'm trying to say, technology can help us. But yesterday on the internet, I saw a very nice image of a spa in a neoclassicist style where people were asking, now where is this beautiful place located? Of course, this was an AI-generated image. To sum up, it will be interesting to see how we will use this technology, but we are indeed living in interesting times. We are faced with deep changes. How we are going to take them on board, how we are going to embrace them, depends on us and on us alone. There are many experts, decision makers, and high ethics intellectuals here today. I am confident that you will all help us avoid saying something about AI in the future. There was an exhibition in Ljubljana in some years ago, and I saw a quote, "In the past, the future looked brighter." I think we have an excellent opportunity to change this quote upside down. Thank you very much.
So that was the Deputy Prime Minister of the government of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Luka Mesec. On such occasions like official openings of congresses, all Slovenian ministers are required to speak Slovenian by protocol. So you were able to hear the beautiful sound of Slovenian again. Now we have the honor of inviting Ms. Audrey Azoulay, the Director General of UNESCO, to the stage. Please.
Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, Madam Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Madam President of the General Conference of UNESCO, dear friends, dear participants. Dober dan. I appreciate this rule that Slovenian ministers should speak Slovenian. It's very UNESCO-minded rule. But for my part, I will speak with a French accent in English. Dear friends, we see our world changing. We are observing it, documenting it, but all too often our way of approaching issues, our way of making decisions remains stuck in the past. Whether we're talking about climate disruption or digital revolution, we can see how profoundly their impacts are transforming our societies. And in this new context, we need an international cooperation that evolves from practices inherited from the last century. We need to reinvent our modes of cooperation to better grasp the new nature of this global phenomena, in which also member states themselves must revisit their modes of intervention and, for example, act with all relevant stakeholders, like we try to do here today in Slovenia. And today here in Slovenia, we are between these two worlds, worlds of yesterday and today, in Slovenia, where together we're giving ourselves the means to shape the future we want. I would like to thank the Deputy Prime Minister for welcoming us here in Bordeaux. By hosting this international forum, you're honoring the Slovenian tradition of hospitality, which we appreciate, in a land of exchanges, openness, at the heart of Europe, also a place of literature and translations, a place that has treasures of cultural and natural heritage that we know how to appreciate in UNESCO, treasures of the past, but also looking towards the future, like we are doing today, with the subject bringing us here together, and with also in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, the first international research center on AI under the auspices of UNESCO, a very good partner for us. So I'd like to thank you all, ministers, experts, multilateral organizations, foundations, businesses, academics, for taking part in this inclusive global meeting to rise collectively to the challenges of AI. And indeed, we have a common question before all of us. Will we be actors or merely spectators of the AI revolution? How can we steer it for the best? This revolution is not only technological, it is anthropological, it's changing our everyday life. And like the Deputy Prime Minister reminded us, it happened overnight. It has already begun. But back in 2019, well before the rise of generative AI, UNESCO's member states initiated a global conversation on this issue. They then recommended the adoption of a global framework for action, firmly rooted in the universal values of the UN Charter, in human rights principle. And in November 21, the UNESCO General Conference adopted the first, and to date I believe the only, standard-setting instrument on this subject at the United Nations level. It's an instrument which also includes tangible measures for implementation at national scale. And we are very proud to have led the way, building on UNESCO's pioneering mandate in scientific ethics. And now, a few years later, we're gathered here also to assess the progress made in implementing the recommendation in the field. We are here to discuss, to exchange ideas with all the other international initiatives addressing the challenges of AI. And we are gathered not only to monitor the evolution of AI, but also to actively contribute to it through our recommendation. Because this instrument, although it was discussed and adopted a few years ago now, saw the future before it arrived. It has anticipated, thanks to many contributions, including those of experts that are here with us today, it has anticipated issues related to transparency and accountabilities of actors, energy efficiency, gender equality, or rather inequality, and the education as well of users. This education for the 21st century, which will need to be more focused on critical thinking and media and information literacy. The recommendation placed a special emphasis on inequalities. Gender inequality, first of all, because according to the study that we carried out in 2019, we saw the scale at which algorithm can reproduce and even amplify the gender biases of society. This includes the new form of gender-based violence made possible by deepfakes, like the abhorrent depictions of Taylor Swift and others that we all too often see on the news. And this is the reason why we launched a Women for Ethical AI platform. And I welcome the members. Some of them are with us today. Thank you for your commitment. Our recommendation also addresses inequalities between regions of the world. When 1/3 of the global population lacks reliable internet access, when only a few actors can access specialized data banks, we can see that AI can indeed create or amplify the existing fractures. Ladies and gentlemen, as we endeavor to avoid these risks and to steer AI for good, UNESCO's recommendation is more than an ethical compass. It is also a tangible tool for public policies. It is a common standard which unites all the stakeholders, leveling the playing field. In this way, the AI advisory body created by the UN Secretary General last October will not only be able to share its own observation, but also to build on this normative framework established by the member states. A framework we are already implementing in a number of countries. Today, UNESCO is assisting, advising nearly 50 states to transpose the principle of our common text into domestic policies. In Europe especially, where we have launched with the Netherlands, that I thank, an exemplary initiative to help European national agencies oversee the rollout of AI. I would like also to commend the Council of Europe, which, under the able guidance of the Secretary General, has taken important steps toward developing a convention on AI, to which UNESCO has been very happy to contribute. Across the Atlantic, in Latin America, we can count on the support of the Regional Council for AI to implement the recommendation, thanks to Chile and the commitment of President Boric. Finally, our efforts are also progressing in Africa, for example, in Côte d'Ivoire, Morocco, and Senegal, to mention just 3 states that have made considerable advances in adapting their policy framework. For all this work done across the globe, I would like to thank 2 key partners that support us in this, the European Union and Japan. I would also like to mention that we will be able to go even further this year, thanks to the support of the G20 presidency, the Brazilian presidency, that has asked UNESCO to be a knowledge partner for the digital agenda of the G20 this year. I would like to thank also our fellow UN agency, in particular the ITU, with which we are working in very close synergy. And I would like also to mention, because this is how political innovation is done, the support of civil society in general, of foundation, and notably the Patrick McGovern Foundation, which is supporting this forum like it has supported many of our initiatives. I'd like to welcome companies that have joined our International Business Council for the Ethics of AI. It shows that they can be committed and supportive of this kind of global initiative. A council which is co-chaired by Microsoft and Telefonica, and welcoming several new members at this forum, which are all committing to implement the tools in principle enshrined in UNESCO's recommendation. And this involvement, this commitment by multinationals is crucial. They are the ones rolling out AI technologies in our daily lives. They are also the ones developing the AI of tomorrow, and they are the driving forces of innovation. This is why we hope that more major companies will adopt the same ethical and responsible approach in the future, notably by joining our International Council. And here in this forum, I'm very pleased to announce that we will go even further in our efforts to create this solid bond with civil society by launching 2 new networks. The first, which is the result of our cooperation with ITU and the Alan Turing Institute, is the Global AI Ethics Observatory. It will be a platform for sharing knowledge and offering guidance on good governance to governments through the identification and evaluation of the most effective public policies. The second initiative, which we're launching today in Slovenia, is our AI Ethics Experts Without Borders network. This Ethics Experts Without Borders will bring together specialists from all disciplines and all regions to reflect on AI in all its complexity, but also its diversity, because we need diverse approaches. Our member states will be able to call on these experts for tailored assistance in applying the tools outlined in UNESCO's recommendation. Again, I would like to thank you for your presence here in Slovenia, where we will be tackling some crucial issues which will shape our future, and I believe will also inspire to look beyond artificial intelligence alone. For example, we must consider the question of neural data on how they are processed and used, a field in which UNESCO has also started to work. Last November, at the request of our member states, we began preparing reflection to prepare for a possible standard-setting instrument on the ethics of neurotechnology, following the same process that we've been following for AI. Many challenges ahead of us, many question marks, but the possibility together to shape with this political innovation, which are instruments like our recommendation, this mixture of global framework with a soft normative common framework and national and regional initiatives, I think will help us towards this future that we want. Thank you. Thanks to Slovenia for having us, and thank you for joining us today. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Azoulay. You know that French accent has actually a nation-building flavor here in Slovenia, because French trying to speak Slovenian, they spoke it with a heavy French accent, who ruled here in Slovenia for 5 years, more than 200 years ago, actually introduced Slovenian as a language in primary education. So we owe it to the French too. Thank you very much. Merci. Our next speaker of honor is Mrs. Marija Pejčinović-Burić, Secretary General of the Council of Europe.
Thank you very much, and let me say dobar dan, bonjour, good afternoon. Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia, Director General of UNESCO, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be in Slovenia and to speak about one of the fundamental challenges facing humankind. By definition, we all want the benefits that artificial intelligence promises, from improving the diagnosis and treatment of illness to reducing the burden of tedious, repetitive, and dangerous work. Equally, we all want reassurance that we can harness these benefits in a way that protects the diverse and vital interests of humankind. This conference will look at what this means in practice. And the distinguished speakers will lay out what they understand by the ethics of AI, how its development might be governed at the international level, and what their own organization is doing to help ensure this. I have no doubt that there will be a similarity in a great deal of our respective approaches, and I look forward to the insights that will be provided, as well as ideas on how we might best work together or in tandem. Certainly, the challenge posed by AI is one that the Council of Europe has been swift to grasp. For the past 75 years, our organization has existed to protect and promote common standards in human rights, democracy, and the rule of law on our continent. On this basis, we seek to ensure that every individual can live in peace and with their dignity and autonomy ensured, making sure that artificial intelligence develops in a way that upholds these values, rights, and standards, and does not undermine them. This is what we mean when we speak from our perspective about the ethics of artificial intelligence. We aim to achieve that, as with all of our work, through a multilateral approach that brings member states together in common cause to develop the legal and non-legal standards that ensure cross-border solutions to cross-border problems. As AI is a perfect case in point. Let me give you some very clear and tangible examples of how we have gone about this. There are already cases of AI processes that have a negative, illegitimate effect on the technology and organization that underpins election campaigns. Sometimes these are direct and deliberate attacks on these key democratic processes, and it is essential to do everything possible to prevent this and ensure faith in the key practices of our democratic societies. That's why 2 years ago, our member states adopted guidelines on the use of information and communication technologies in the electoral processes. These support governments in handling electoral data and processes, including in the registration of voters, the online publication of election information, and in determining, processing, and publishing election results. This is one of our specific AI-related tools. Another supports the administration of justice. AI has the potential to improve the predictability of the law and the consistency of court decisions, whether in civil, commercial, or administrative matters. But Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights, ratified and enforced in every one of our 46 member states, guarantees the right of every individual to a fair trial. But this is thrown into jeopardy, where AI gives rise to bias, discrimination, and mistakes. To address this, the Council of Europe's European Commission for the Efficiency of Justice, CEPEJ, has produced a European ethical charter on the use of AI in judicial systems. This guides our member states to apply 5 principles: respect for fundamental rights, non-discrimination, quality and security, transparency, impartiality, and fairness, and ensuring that users are informed actors and in control of their choices. Compliance with this charter while processing or making use of judicial decisions and data produced by algorithms will help to reinforce justice in the artificial intelligence age. Other AI-related tools include regulating the use of AI in prison and probation systems, in electronic facial recognition, and in healthcare systems too. But crucially, we are at an advanced stage of the elaboration of a broader instrument with the support of European leaders who endorsed our approach last May, Summit of Heads of State and Government in Reykjavik. Our new framework convention on artificial intelligence, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law will provide a transversal approach to ensuring a legally binding framework for artificial intelligence based on international law, which will serve the public interest. Currently, negotiations involve all our member states, plus the European Union and a range of non-European partners. These include the United States, Canada, Mexico, Israel, Japan, the Holy See, Argentina, Costa Rica, Peru, Uruguay, Australia, and soon South Korea. And the input of other international organizations and around 70 non-governmental organizations and private sector interests all help to ensure that the final text will be a strong and a balanced one. The negotiations for that framework convention are due to conclude with the opening of this convention for signature this spring. and I'm certain that its eventual ratification will be a landmark moment in guiding the ethical development of artificial intelligence, not just in Europe, but around the world. For this will be an open convention, made in Europe, but open to the world. The challenges posed by artificial intelligence to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law do not stop at European borders. So we hope that many other countries from other continents will also ratify, delivering a wide and effective approach. Ladies and gentlemen, AI truly is a new frontier for humanity, and I have no doubt that we can make a success of it if we choose the right, cooperative, and international approach. Let this conference open our eyes to new ways of achieving that. Thank you very much.
That was Madam Marija Pejčinović-Burić, Secretary General of the Council of Europe. Before we shoot a family photo, we have two special video messages, and the first comes from Mrs. Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union.
Thank you to Prime Minister Golob, Minister Stoyanov, and UNESCO for bringing ITU into this conversation on changing the landscape of AI governance. ITU and UNESCO have been close partners in this AI journey for many years. Together, we co-lead the UN system-wide coordination to ensure that AI is designed, developed, and deployed responsibly and ethically. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a critical juncture in this journey. A few days ago, ITU convened the diplomatic community at our headquarters in Geneva to kick off the new year. We sought the ambassadors' views on their most pressing concerns, and the consensus was clear. Regulating AI is at the top of their priorities, on par with climate change, and well ahead of issues like economic growth or peace and security. It's a pivotal moment that's redefining global priorities. What we, as the global community, do next will not just change the landscape of AI governance, it will transform our digital future and our very relationship with technology. As we move forward, I believe that our actions must be rooted in three core principles. The first principle is a shared commitment to universal, meaningful connectivity. How can any of the 2.6 billion people who are currently offline around the world aspire to be part of the AI revolution if they're not even part of the broader digital revolution? Not to mention all those in low-income countries who are connected but use less data, which prevents them from achieving the full potential of connectivity. Investing in universal and affordable access to the internet is a fundamental first step. But we must also invest in digital skills development, particularly in developing countries. The risk of inaction, as the new analysis by the International Monetary Fund also shows, is that over time, AI could worsen inequalities amongst nations. The second principle is proportionality. It's all about striking the right balance between the risks and the benefits, between ensuring the responsible development and deployment of AI without stifling innovation. And that's where standards, one of ITU's key functions, have an essential role to play. Technical standards are a prerequisite for effective implementation of guardrails. They can make AI systems safer and more secure, building trust in an era where trust is in high demand. And that's not all. Standards can help level the playing field for developing and least developed countries by lowering barriers to trade and encouraging competition and innovation. But for standards to truly work, they should stem from a process that's inclusive, transparent, and aligned with our ambitions for a better world. And that brings me to the third principle. We're all in this together. Despite the steps in AI governance taken in the last few months, the regulatory landscape is still in its infancy. Countries are at very different stages in their AI journey, but they're eager to learn from each other, and they look to us for support in capacity building. This is our moment to ensure all countries, all stakeholders have a voice in shaping the future of AI. Together, let's create an environment where diverse perspectives are essential in driving innovation and equitable progress, where we stay true to the core UN values, including human rights. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to harness AI to accelerate progress in climate change, education, health, and all of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Let's seize this moment, and let's make sure that we leave no one behind. AI for good and for all. That's our path forward. Thank you.
So that was Mrs. Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union. And last but not least, we have another video message from Mrs. Viera Jourova, Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you. Unfortunately, my duties did not allow me to travel to Slovenia this time. I would like to start by congratulating the organizers, namely the government of Slovenia and UNESCO, for preparing such rich and interesting program for the Global Forum on the Ethics of AI. AI is becoming a central part of many crucial conversations about our future, and to develop a trustworthy AI, ethics will be key. I think there is a growing understanding that while the potential of AI is enormous in many aspects, without an honest debate between policymakers, businesses, civil society, and the people, the consequences can be very negative. With the previous tech revolution and with the emergence of the platforms, we failed to make such a conversation successful early on. So we could not preempt many of the negative impacts on societies and democracy. We should not repeat this mistake. This year, 2 billion people will cast their votes across the globe. I am sure the AI will show its impact on democracy and human rights. We already know that the AI-generated content will play a role, and an increasing one. What I think could be done? First, thinking about safety, security, and human rights at the design and testing phase. I think significant resources should go to assess and test the negative scenarios and impact on security, on elections, on information space, on biases. And second, I would expect a global approach. What we can hear from the AI experts is that the potential of the technology is basically unlimited. There will be bad and risky use cases. Bad people will use AI as well. This is why all countries should strive for some global governance and limits. We should for once be adults in the room and put the well-being of the peoples first. Not to do regulatory race to the bottom, but put guardrails. The EU put out its opening gambit, namely the AI Act. The Act very much reflects the two simultaneous objectives, namely ensuring that the potential benefits of AI will come to the people while addressing the risks. AI Act is also an invitation to have the AI regulatory discussion on the global stage. No politician or government or company will be able to do it alone. We need everyone. Otherwise, the trend of losing trust and disruption will only continue. Thank you.
So that was the Vice President of the European Commission, Mrs. Věra Jourová. And now we have this big challenge of staging everything for a really fantastic family photo. I now kindly invite the first row of dignitaries to come to the stage. And of course, all heads of delegations are then invited to join in below the stage. Don't be afraid. It's actually a safe place. Although it will be crowded. Yeah, Ms. Azoulay, you stand in the middle. Yeah. Okay, head of delegations in the middle, below. Okay. Opala. Okay, no, breaking glass brings luck in Slovenia, so that was perfect.
I'm sorry.
No problem. So, heads of delegations in the center below. We knew that would be a logistical challenge, but please gather. Yeah. No problem, just join. It's safe. Just smile. Okay. We also in Slovenian cheese means sir, so you can use it both, the English and the Slovenian version, not the French one, fromage, because then. So, fellow photographers, there are quite many. Is it okay? Can we start? No, not yet. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cheese. That was a small piece of cheese. Can we do it again? Okay, the tallest guy with the. Okay. So once again, 3, 4, cheese. I think applause would help to cheer the people. Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a logistical challenge, but we did it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the press conference for those who are supposed to go there. But of course, we have work to do here in the main hall, and we will continue with the next ministerial session on the regional approach to advance ethical governance of artificial intelligence. So I invite all the panelists on stage for session number 3. I think you know who should come to the stage. It will be a big panel, so it's also a logistical, wouldn't say nightmare, but please join us on stage for session 3 on the regional approach to advance ethical governance of AI. The moderator is already there. Aida Kamišalić-Latifić, State Secretary in the Ministry of Digital Transformation, while we wait for panelists to join us in full. Looking for inspiration that Slovenia is an open, inclusive country which gathers all the talents from the region, Europe and all the world. Dr. Aida Kamišalić-Latifić, the moderator, is surely one of the role models. She came to Slovenia from her native Bosnia and Herzegovina as a war refugee. As teenager, was a brilliant student and completed her studies at the University of Maribor, Slovenia's second largest city, at the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. By now, Mrs. Kamišalić-Latifić has had almost 20 years of experience in research, teaching and project work. Her research interests include data technologies, big data, blockchain technology, and medical informatics. In 2020, she was awarded the title of the Engineer of the Year in Slovenia. So, Dr. Kamišalić-Latifić, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this great introduction. Thank you everyone for joining me at this ministerial session. Welcome. This session on regional approach to advance ethical governance of AI. During this panel, we will explore the significance and importance of regional alliances in navigating the ethical landscape of AI. Collaboration on regional level enables countries to identify common features and design targeted solutions. It also brings the possibility to form alliances and jointly address challenges and opportunities unique to the region. Developments on this level also allow for regional convergence on AI legislation, such as EU AI Act, African Union AI Continental Strategy, and the Guide on AI Governance and Ethics from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. For effective implementation of the UNESCO's recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, UNESCO also relies on regional policy platforms where countries with similar conditions can exchange experiences and advance implementation. This session brings us together to analyze and discuss the diverse AI regulatory approaches regionally and how ethical principles can be streamlined across various national regulations and frameworks. To discuss this important aspect in this session, we have representatives from Chile, Netherlands, Czech Republic, Denmark, Romania, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia, and Mozambique. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me. First, I would like to start with Aysen Echeverri, Minister. Thank you. Sometimes I will probably need help just to locate you. Thank you. Minister of Science, Technology, Knowledge, and Innovation from Chile. We can see multiple processes in place to create regional convergence. The AI Act, I already mentioned, Council of Europe's draft convention, ASEAN Digital Strategy 2025, and so on. So I'm interested in hearing from you, from your experiences. What are your experiences with these regional processes? And in particular, how important this are for countries with similar levels of development?
Well, thank you so much for the invitation and for making me part of this panel. As was mentioned in the previous panel, right? In 2023, as part of the process of the implementation of the RAM recommendation, the RAM and the UNESCO recommendation, we realized that there was a common interest among countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. And therefore, there was a good opportunity for collaboration. However, this region is one that has ministers of science and technology that are fairly recent. And therefore, starting a collaboration within the region was something that has never been done before in these areas. If you look at how we collaborate in science and technology in Latin America, it's mostly from our countries to the US or to Europe, but collaboration among countries is something that is just starting. So we organized the meeting sort of as a pilot. We didn't know what was going to come out of the meeting. We got together in Santiago in October last year. it was the first time ministers of science, technology, and alike got to meet. And the results were, well, in my opinion, amazing. Not only because we managed to have a very honest conversation on what our concerns were, but also because you realize that we have a common approach from a cultural perspective to what the challenges are. When we think about what are the risks and the risks associated to artificial intelligence, for example, we all acknowledge that big part of the discrimination that can come with this technology is not only on the algorithms and how they're built, but also, and most importantly, I would say for our region, in the way we participate in the design and the deployment, right? If we're not able to be a part of the design and the deployment of artificial intelligence, then there is a first discrimination that happens where our countries, our cultures, our languages, our territories are not represented in the development of this tool. And the same when we look at it locally, right? We have large amounts of our population and our territories that have not been digitalized, that are not feeding with data, and therefore are being made completely invisible to the development of technology. And once you start looking at the development of AI from this perspective, the words inclusiveness and non-discrimination, they get a different content, right? There's a new definition that comes from the experience of countries that are experiencing the development of the technology in the same way. So once you get to that point, which is where we are at, I believe, it is possible to build common positions to the international discussion. And that's the next step, right? How we can get from sharing the experience to actually creating common positions that can feed and can nurture the international discussion that we're having. So this perspective and this culture and this language is also represented not only in regulation, but I would say most importantly, in the development and the application and deployment of artificial intelligence for the benefit of society. So even though we're the newest and the different regions have already governances in place that have been working for a long time and have a very strong structure, what I see from Latin America and the Caribbean is a lot of enthusiasm and a real need to advance in this direction. So I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot from us in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Next, I would like to address some of European representatives here. First, Mrs. Angeline van Dijk, Inspector General, the Dutch Authority for Digital Infrastructure. Then Mrs. Anne-Marie Engtoft-Meldgaard, Tech Ambassador from Denmark. Mr. Marek Havrda, Deputy Minister for European Affairs from Czech Republic. And online, we have Mr. Dragoș Tudorache, Member of European Parliament, Chair of the Special Committee on Artificial Intelligence in the Digital Age from Romania. So for all four of you, I guess that we all share the same enthusiasm about the AI Act. And congratulations to everyone, also all other present here, for all the efforts that have been made in the past years. So it's a huge milestone. Now it's really important that we speed up the process of implementation and enforcement. So I'm interested in hearing how can different initiatives help scale up and speed up this process. So maybe I would like to start with you, Angelique.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. The Dutch Digital Infrastructure Authority, I'm the Inspector General of it, and I look from a perspective of supervising the AI. But we work together with UNESCO on a project that's funded by the European Commission. DG reform. And it's about supervising the best practices of AI. And the outcome of this project will help European competent authorities to enhance the capacities and increase their knowledge on supervising AI. And that's very important because as a supervisor, I know that nobody exactly knows how to supervise an AI. What are the risks that are accepted? What is a good audit? What are the costs? How do you measure? And we only can learn that if we create a learning environment and just by doing it. So that is also important to unite this also in Europe with this project. It's extremely important for us. So there are new risks, new questions to be answered. We need new experiences, good legislation, guide rails like the AI Act. And what I also know for sure is there are no benefits for AI if you don't have a good digital infrastructure. It all starts with that. And you also cannot isolate an AI. It's integrated. You have to know the context and the environment of it and understand that quite well, because it's in a platform, it's in networks, it's in devices, it's in cloud services. So we have to understand with each other the whole system. So that's also important to know and to learn from each other to understand that system. And when I look to the development of AI, I think it's similar like the developments we had in the telecom sector. The technical standards worldwide now we have for 3, 4 or 5G. You can bring your own device through the whole world and still be connected. And that will also be hard in the beginning, and we managed to do it. Now we have AI, and I'm very glad with the support of UNESCO and the European working stream together to try to fix this and give access to all of us. So that's the start.
Thank you.
Then I give the phone. Yeah, you have one.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I'm the Danish Tech Ambassador. On this question of speed and scale, I think at first is to recognize that legislation is almost always behind of technology, and then come enforcement and implementation. Technology will happen regardless of whether we legislate and enforce or not. So now is a good time, I think, to think about how do we have an implementation framework that not only fits the technology landscape of today, but also of tomorrow. And I want to point on 3 things I think is important. One, it has to be easy to understand. I think that the EU has done a quite good job with the AI Act, but having frameworks, legislation, text fundamentally that most laymen can understand, that is easy to take into your job and know, do I actually enforce this in a meaningful way or not, is the first step. And ensuring alignment across whether it's AI Act, G7, G20, TTC, OECD, UNESCO ethical principles, language, and easy to understand frameworks that are aligned. The second one is around talent and expertise. We have wonderful bureaucrats, and they've been doing an extraordinary work for many years, but they're not necessarily the best at advanced AI understanding. So we need to make sure that the AI wizards come a little bit closer, and that this question around sort of serving your country or serving your region, and maybe even allowing from some sort of exchange between public sector and private sector to make sure that we get the adequate expertise to help us enforcing these rules. And then finally, I'm a diplomat, and the diplomat's job is fundamentally to make sure that we avoid wars, and if it's too late, try to minimize the conflict. When it comes to a future that is so tainted by technology, I think that the questions whether we're going to have more prosperity, peace, security, opportunities for more, or the opposite, is going to come down to the question of how do we regulate and govern technologies? Are they inclusive? Do they benefit the more and not the few? And so to this question, the most important around implementation is to make sure we don't only do it for us. Great AI implementation in the EU is great. I'm a European citizen, that's wonderful, but it won't necessarily be the most important thing for the rest of the world. So making sure the alignment, and I think UNESCO is so well suited, and we see a lot of collaboration in this already. And then just in conclusion, I would advocate for more confidence in this space. The bowl might be digital, but we've done the rodeo before. We've known how to enforce very challenging legislation. And so this time around, I think we have all the right measures to do it again. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Jaurda?
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. First, allow me to express my gratitude to UNESCO and to Slovenian hosts for this excellent event and the opportunity to exchange views at the global level. As someone who helped to launch the first forum, which took place in Prague during our presidency of the EU, it is really a great pleasure to see how the forum is growing, how it develops and thrives. Well, adoption of the European Union AI Act will be an important milestone, but it's just the beginning. And as already mentioned, clearly important will be how we implement it and enforce the act. The act builds on risk-based approach, with risk management systems being at the heart of that approach. And first area I would like to talk about in terms of the potential cooperation between UNESCO, the EU member states, and the support by DG Reform is exactly on that. Helping build a monitoring system which would help us not only to monitor and analyze incidents, but as well getting better understanding of the impacts of AI on human rights, on democracy, on society in general is crucial. So building these approaches, building these metrics could be among the chief areas of the cooperation. It could as well help us to build metrics which would be standardized and then used, among other things, in the sandboxes which we are going to build. So the regulatory sandbox is kind of a special environment. Because without that, we will not understand what the impacts are, so we will not be able to build the risk management and risk mitigation systems. As well, these metrics could help us to establish, these metrics developed in this international cooperation manner could help us to start developing globally acceptable metrics, which could eventually be kind of a starting point of monitoring the impacts globally of AI systems, and this will be an evolving game. So we need kind of put in place continuous monitoring of the impacts. The second area relates to innovation, and we need to make sure that by implementing the AI Act, we will not cause the situation where the firms, where the companies are punished and penalized for being ethical, for acting ethically. So the other area of the cooperation could be on putting together tools which would effectively and efficiently support companies to actually deal with the AI Act, to be able to implement it on the ground in their everyday practice. Because without that, it will be very difficult for them to bring in life the new and very, very demanding regulation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask Mr. Dragoš Tudorache, who is online with us, to say a few words on this topic. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon to all. Many thanks to UNESCO and to the Slovenian government for inviting me, and apologies for not being able to be with you there, but we have a plenary session this week in Strasbourg, so duty called. On speed and scale of implementation. First, I think it's important to say that we are right now almost at the end of the normative journey, which certainly hasn't been an easy one. It started pretty much 4 years ago with the initial announcement from the Commission that there will be an AI Act, pretty much putting a placeholder there where no other jurisdictions around the world had dared at the time to think that there is worth putting a normative placeholder in place. And then, as one of the lead negotiators on behalf of the European Parliament, I can testify that it has not been at all an easy journey. Since last week, we have the vote in the Council. Now we are awaiting still for the final vote in Parliament, but I anticipate that will take place without any further tensions or anxiety by the end of March, early April at the latest. What happens next? I think that's the key question. Now, again, that the normative journey is over, and the AI Act will see the light of day in early spring. Of course, now the ball moves in the corner of implementation, and this is where, from my point of view, and I'm sure hearing the other speakers, this is where the biggest challenge will be. And I see this on three levels. First of all, it is the national level in the EU, because a lot of the implementation, a lot of the competences in terms of rolling out the application of the Act will reside with the national regulators, which the member states first and foremost will have to put in place. Will have to either choose existing authorities that will also be taking on this responsibility of implementing the Act, or create new entities for that. They will have 24 months to do it. This is the time frame for when the Act will, it has a phased approach, but the whole bulk of the norms in the Act will take effect 24 months from adoption. So that will be the time frame that member states have at their disposal to do what they have to do to be ready for implementation. And it's not only mounting up the right talent, the right cultural and administrative rules that will be necessary to instill the right spirit in the authorities that will be playing with the AI Act, but it's also how they will roll out. I think someone mentioned already the sandboxes, those enablers that are so key and that we have deliberately inserted in the AI Act to help innovation, to encourage innovation, to encourage creativity, because AI has, and have to start from that point, a huge potential. It can bring enormous benefits in our societies and economies, but it will be up to the regulators, mostly at national level, because this is where the high risk will be assessed. This is where, again, most of the interaction between the developers, the deployers, and the regulator will take place. And again, how they will be understanding their role, how they will be finding the right talent to interact with those wizards. I think someone mentioned the word wizards, with those AI wizards out there who will be coming and knocking at the door of Sandbox or knocking at the door of the national regulator to see whether they have made the right assumptions in assessing themselves to be high risk or low risk, whether they've done the right testing, whether they've done the right transparency and explainability exercises, so on and so forth. So that's the first challenge in implementation. The second one is at European level, where the AI office will have to be set up. It will start in spring and will roll out also rather quickly. And then the third, because I don't want to take too much time, and then the third challenge will be, of course, the global one. We have a duty to seek global interoperability of the different normative landscapes that we will have, either national or regional or multi-national level, because again, I think by now everyone understands that having a global governance in place, i.e. an interoperability between the different frameworks that will exist, is fundamental for how we will be referring to the interaction between this technology and the future of our societies and economies over the next decade.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to, we have heard a bit of a European perspective. Now I would like to go to Asian perspective. Here we have representatives, Mr. Chai Vutivi-Vachai, Executive Director of the National Electronics and Computer Technology Center from Thailand. Mr. Nazar Patria, Vice Minister of Communication and Informatics from Indonesia. Mr. Makara Ko, Secretary of State, Ministry of Post and Telecommunications, Cambodia. And Mr. Keovisuk Solafom, Deputy Minister of Ministry of Post and Telecommunication, Laos. So what I'm interested in from your point of view to bring us, how can ASEAN as a forum support the efforts of Asian countries to make AI governance work? and perhaps even branch out to non-ASEAN members of the region. So maybe we can start with you, Mr. Chai.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, UNESCO and Slovenia for inviting me to this forum. I just would like to give a little bit about what we are doing in Thailand. We developed the Thailand National AI Strategies and Action Plans for 5 years, now running for 2 years already. This is since 2022. And we have a National AI Committee chaired by Prime Minister himself, and was assigned to drive this plan. But according to the survey, you know that we have a good surveys last year from about 500 organizations, including public and private. We see only 15%, 15% of organizations adopting AI in their use. This is situations in Thailand. Actually, this plan and this strategy, therefore, trying to fill up the gaps of AI ecosystem rather than to trying to control the use of AI. So we would like to build up the infrastructures, human capital, research, innovation, and promotion, and not forget to include the ethicals and regulations in the strategy as well. For last year, we have the Thailand AI Ethics Guideline, which was accepted by the cabinet to promote countrywide after the starting of the plan. And moreover, last year, we have an agency of electronics transaction development under the Ministry of Digital Economy, establishing AI Governance Clinic, AIGC, as a public center for consultation on AI governance. And then we launched a program called Thailand AI Readiness Index to assess the advancement of AI ecosystem in Thailand. We expect to continue this index activity every year to ensure the success of strategy driving. And in the regional level, as you invite many ASEAN members here, the ASEAN Digital Minister meeting, ADG Min, has just welcomed the ASEAN Guides on AI Governance and Ethics, and set up a new working group on AI governance just 2 days ago in Singapore. This guide described recommendations in several levels: general principles, national levels, and also regional level recommendations, and trying to setting up a regional working groups adapting the guides of generative AI specifically. This is some example of the activities. But these AI principles or guidelines mainly give a high-level ethical concerns. We are expecting that UNESCO will come up and see the practice of the interpreting the AI principle into the practical recommendations that could be our next step.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Cole?
Yes. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to Slovenian government and UNESCO for organizing this workshop. Well, let me start in short, but by informing what have been done in Cambodia. Actually, the Cambodian, we are adopting the Digital Economy and Society Policy Framework 2021 and to 2035. It means that Cambodia is on the journey to do the digital transformation toward digital economy and society in 2035. So what we see, the AI is a digital tool, a key digital tool in the digital transformation for us. So as we already recognize that AI technology in nature is the technology that evolves very fast and can support for innovation but at the meantime can create negative impact to the world civilization, but not only to Cambodian nation. In this regard, we are happy that UNESCO effort has been prepared a lot of a number of documents, in particular the governance model on AI with ethics, and at the same time in our region, that in Asian region, that during the meeting of Asian Digital Minister last week, that we have adopted the AI framework in both governance and ethics. And within this framework, the most beautiful thing is that we are going to establish a working group under the Asian umbrella. I think that in this regard, all Asian countries can contribute through the development of the AI and also mitigate all the risks from the application of the AI in the region. In Cambodia's side, we have our problem as well that need to be addressed, in particular the identified gap. So in this situation, we have the digital gap that need to be addressed. At the same time, the digital gap is fueled by the AI introduction to Cambodia as well. It means that when the time we are talking, the gap is increasing. So we are on the situation that on the one hand, we need to address the connectivity gap, and at the same time, we need to be able to embrace AI for our citizens as well. And we see that we have a number of efforts that need to be conducted, of course, with the guideline document that we got from UNESCO and as well as under the framework in Asian region. And we can use the measurement metric as well. If we have a unique measurement metric across the nation around the world, it's very good for us as well in order to avoid the misunderstanding and miscommunication in terms of measurement, development, and risk mitigation for that. So another thing is that we are focusing on the concrete capacity building of our national talent. Is very important for us to address all the remaining issues. But at the same time, we need to see the efficient enforcement mechanism. That very, very important. Without enforcement mechanism, we cannot figure out how the ethic aspect of the AI can be achieved. That the goal that we have been set. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Solafon, please.
Thank you very much to the UNESCO and the Republic of Slovenia to be the host of this important event. As my colleagues mentioned about the ASEAN guidelines for AI governance and ethics proposed by Singapore, I would like to add something that this guideline have reference and comply with UNESCO recommendation of AI ethics, which we found is very useful documents that's having very comprehensive and detailed information on AI matter. They're also using the EU AI Act as reference as well. Since the ASEAN does not have the authority to pass any laws, member states have the responsibility to implement the guide and to formulate their own policies regarding AI. Laos will be the host for ASEAN Summit this year. The guideline will be reported to the head of states during the meeting. In case of Laos, we also in the process of formulation the nation AI strategy, aiming to narrow the development gap. This is a part of our digital transformation plan, which is shared by our Prime Minister. Based on the recent assessment of government AI readiness, in ASEAN countries, we have different level of development. For example, Singapore in the top 10 in the world. But in our ASEAN countries, some below 50, but our country, Laos, around 135. There are some priority challenges that allows needs to be overcome, such as accompanying the transformation, as AI is both a technological and social innovation. It brings with it all the benefits and complexities that can completely transform the society, including the public sector. Data ecosystem allows the lack of open access to data has been noticed as a major obstacle for the data revolution. Many local contents in our language is difficult for the machine to understand. Technological and infrastructure, there is a lack of technological adoption and infrastructure development for the adoption of AI technologies in Laos. Technologies such as big data, machine learning, deep learning, and decision making are not widely used, not widely available over there. However, we have good news that the UNESCO has expressed their desire to assist Laos in formulation of this strategy. We also need widely cooperation in the global level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And finally, from this round from Asian countries, I would like to ask Mr. Nazar Patria to...
Thank you. Thank you for UNESCO and Slovenia for hosting this very prestigious global forum on AI. For Indonesia, ASEAN plays pivotal roles in strengthening communication and exchange of insight for its members for many aspects, including AI implementations. And I think today in the regions, AI has become a most popular word in Singapore, in Thailand, in Indonesia as well. Many workshops, many seminars running in this last 6 months, I think, very intensive meetings amongst the ASEAN members to discuss this AI. And one of the outcome of the intensive exposure on AI was the recent endorsement of ASEAN Guide on AI Governance and Ethics during ASEAN Digital Minister meeting last 2 weeks, I think. And the meeting also reflects how important is AI for the region, and all the members of ASEAN show their concerns about sharing basic values that can adopted by respective countries into the practice how to regulate this AI. So we agree for several key principles such as transparency, fairness, security, reliability, humanity, data protection, accountability, and integrity, which align with Indonesia's commitment as well to foster inclusivity and closing the digital divide that have mentioned by colleagues from Cambodia and Thailand as well. And of course, ASEAN is very flexible. We are a flexible organization, regional organization. And I can say that because our flexibility, we can dance very beautiful among the countries by try to improving our mutual understanding on these strategic issues. And on the AI ethics guidelines, in Indonesia, our ministry have issued one of ministry circular letter on AI guidelines that also adopted the key principles that I mentioned before, and also it's aligned with the UNESCO ethical AI guidelines. And we believe that with a strong cooperation among ASEAN members, we can introduce these cooperations under the ASEAN ethical AI guidelines to other non-ASEAN members. Perhaps we will push these key principles to be adopted in the ASEAN levels. So I think we are very optimistic with this, and maybe we can represent ASEAN values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have heard the Asian view and the regional approach. Now I would like to hear some words from the regional approach within Arab countries. So I would like to ask Mr. Abdullah Al-Ghamdi, is with us, President of Saudi Data and AI Authority from Saudi Arabia. We know that you host the UNESCO Category 2 Center on AI, which was recently launched. Your mission is to advance a common regional approach in Arab countries. So I'm interested in hearing how do you see this work in progress?
First, I would like to thank you, Your Excellency, and I would like to congratulate the government of Slovenia and also UNESCO for convening this gathering. And basically, this gathering reminds us of our shared responsibility to navigate safely through the complexities of AI with proper precision. So we think that the ethics and also the importance of the ethics is so crucial. And we had many gatherings and conferences over the last few months. So basically, regarding the ICARE, the International Center for Research and Ethics, for AI Research and Ethics, basically marks our achievement towards taking the lead globally in the AI ethics. And by the way, Saudi was amongst the first countries to announce the AI ethics based on the UNESCO ethics recommendations. So the ICARE was approved by the UNESCO as Category 2 Center last November. And since then, we started many activities. First, the ICARE has maybe four principles or roles. First is to encourage and support research and development in the area of AI. First, we encourage countries and societies to promote and capitalize on the potential opportunities of AI. Second, we also grow the ethics awareness and outreach through the member countries. And third, basically, we understand the challenge of talent, so we focused more on capability building. And recently, we announced the one initiative. We called it the Elevate in partnership with the Google Cloud. So the aim of this initiative is to train and educate 25,000 women from around the globe on the AI principles. And basically, we finished the first cohort 2 months ago. It was around 1,000 ladies passing the course. And last but not least is the vetting of policies, rules, regulations in the area of AI. The ICARE organized recently, the last 2 weeks, awareness session on the UNESCO AI ethics RAM, the readiness assessment methodology. And it was organized with the presence of the GCC countries, 6 countries, and also with the Arab World League around more than 20 countries from the Arab world. And the aim, as we said, is to focus more on the readiness assessment methodology. Last point, basically, we think that our position in Saudi as at the heart of the Islamic and Arab world makes our mission more sensitive and also crucial. So we focus more on the Arabic language and also large language model development in collaboration with people from around the region. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. And now a little bit of insight into the African vision, on common African vision for AI governance. Here is Mr. Daniel Nibagara, Minister of Science, Technology and Higher Education from Mozambique. You are a part of UNESCO support program for the implementation of readiness assessment methodology. And you are also the part of the Southern African Development Community. So I'm interested in hearing from you, how do you observe the development of this common African vision for AI governance?
Yeah, merci beaucoup pour...
Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm delighted to be here, and I think it's a great opportunity for me to highlight our positions regarding the governance of AI. Regarding your question, I would like to say that for us, in order to have a common vision for Africa regarding the governance of AI, we first and foremost need to have a keen awareness regarding cultural diversity as it exists in Africa, because as you know, in Africa, we have a very diverse language landscape in the different countries. There are also questions regarding literacy, and we do understand that there are a lot of people who still need to learn how to use computers, and we need to work on literacy. From a cultural perspective, there are many things. There is one thing that is particularly important, and that is the question of skills development. Another element that is very important for our common vision of AI governance in Africa, to my mind, is the question of how we take into account specificities in the different countries, the specificities of the different countries. As you know, we are in Africa. Each African country has a different level of development, and that also goes together with very different needs in terms of development, specific needs for each country in terms of development. So the fundamental question that we are faced with is, if we understand AI well, we know that it can help us and has helped us grow. But the fundamental question, as I was saying, is what are the specific needs of each country, so that we may use AI at best in order to increase our development. And I think this is a key question. It will help us think and think about how we can set the best possible goals and how we can best make use of AI. I also believe that as we have had opportunity to participate in the development of that readiness assessment methodology, we have been able to think about how ready our country was for the development of AI, and we do believe that it is key, absolutely key, to consider as a challenge the possibility to have, at the level of Africa, to have innovators in terms of AI innovators in Africa, from Africa, so that those may be people who will push and give momentum to the whole continent in terms of having the right pace and in order to develop AI at the level of the continent. That leads me to believe also that for us in Africa, we need to develop further mechanisms, dialogue, multidisciplinary dialogue mechanisms that can reach across cultures. We need to further promote exchanges, discussions between the government, civil society, but also together with the private sector. I believe we also must foster dialogue, international dialogue, regional dialogue, international dialogue, and also work on partnerships such as the ones encouraged by UNESCO. I think all of that will be very helpful in order to walk in the same direction as far as AI governance is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And to wrap up the first round, I would also like to ask Mr. Thomas Schneider, Ambassador and Director of International Relations, Swiss Federal Office of Communication, and Chair of the Council of Europe Committee on AI from Switzerland. We know that the Council of Europe is close to the adoption of the final, of the first binding treaty for countries in, but also beyond the EU. So can you share with us more insights on the convention and how it aims to achieve interoperability with other important frameworks, including UNESCO's recommendations?
Yes, thank you. And of course, also thanks to UNESCO and the Slovenian government for organizing this. If you want our societies and economies to peacefully coexist, cooperate, and to some extent also compete, then we need rules that organize this competition and coexistence and so on. And if we look at new technologies, it's not just one legal instrument. If you look at engines, how they were governed over the past 200 years, we have hundreds of technical norms, legal norms, and also social cultural norms that guide the use of engines in different contexts, in cars, in airplanes, and so on and so forth. And it's also, they guide the users, the infrastructure relevant to the particular context with different degrees of harmonization globally. So the airline industry is much more harmonized because it's more global, whereas on a car you have different speed limits and different rules. And we probably need something similar when it comes to AI. And also there, probably to harmonize some technical standards will be easier than harmonizing social cultural norms. Probably it's not possible and also not wished to harmonize our cultures. And the legal systems will be somewhere in between, of course. And the Council of Europe, for those that are not from Europe, this is not an organ of the European Union. This is an institution with 46 member states that has competencies on human rights, democracy, and rule of law. Is focusing on these three elements and has looked at some gaps in the existing legal framework and has developed some sectoral instruments that we have heard from the Secretary General, and has decided that also a horizontal convention would be needed, which is the one that we are currently working on. It is focusing on some fundamental principles that states, signatories should respect, should commit in a binding way to respect. It's not based on the European institutional system with the Court of Human Rights and so on, because it's meant to be an instrument that is acceptable to anyone, all countries that value human rights and democracy, rule of law, from all around the globe. We have had a handful states since the beginning negotiating with us. 2 more handful have already joined and a number more are interested. So the goal is to contribute to this famous interoperability through agreeing on goals, principles, values, and leaving it up to the respective state and their judicial tradition, their tradition to, in the how to reach these goals, these objectives, how to live up to these purposes. So it's meant also as a bridge between regional systems, regional realities, knowing that, of course, AI is a global tool. So, and we hope that we have it finalized in a few weeks' time. And what is important is that it's not just inclusive in terms of countries from all over the world, but it's also inclusive in terms of around 100 civil society, business and academia institutions cooperating, looking at the text, making proposals, telling us what they would like to see. And I can only invite all countries and all stakeholders to join the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have heard different experiences, different approaches taken within several regions. We are aware of importance of this regional approach, but I'm also interested now in understanding, and you have also greatly pointed out this bridge and how we can now reach that these many regional frameworks actually converge towards a common vision, globally common vision, without creating actually dissonance. What would be the next steps or what are the obstacles to really converge? So I would like, we have briefly, 12 minutes left. So since this is really extend panel, for this last question or few questions that I've given, I would like just to encourage whoever wants to step in and give some insights. So you want to continue. Yeah, so please, and then...
we can reverse the orders. I'll be very short. You need cooperation and development of norms on all levels, also on the technical field, and to see how social cultural differences can be maybe understood and respected to the extent that they do not have negative effects on the other societies. So in order for us to peacefully coexist, dialogue and mutual understanding and respect is the first step, and then agree on norms wherever possible is probably the next one. And yeah, we are still at the beginning with all the few instruments that we have. There will be a lot more coming.
I think there are two things to look at when it comes to convergence. One is to identify the pain points, and maybe that is the next UNESCO conference. Where do we deeply disagree, and how to overcome those disagreements, because otherwise it stays at a very high level. And then the second point, and I think our colleagues both from ASEAN and from Africa here pointed to it, the digital divide. When it comes to AI, there's no implementation if you can't meaningfully use AI in your societies, in your industries, and for civil society. So this question about how to have the abilities to meaningfully harness AI, that will be key, not only to implement, but to make sure that these wonderful, I think, legislation and governance actually, in the end, benefits individual societies and democracies.
Mr. Houda.
Thank you. We're getting to the point that we have agreed on certain norms and even on some binding ones as the AI Act or the US executive orders. So now we're moving to the stage of enforcement, and what we need there is frank exchange, honest exchange, how enforcement is working among those who are the forerunners. So this is the first thing. Second, we will need to continually monitor the impacts, because the technology will be evolving. So we cannot kind of like stay where we are, and as Thomas is pointing, this will evolve further much. But we need to have this evidence-based, this information, this data on which to build. And thirdly, to support enforcement in other places than the forerunners. So we need to be thinking how we help the other countries who would like to enforce the rules, so to have the capacity to enforce it, and to as well make a kind of a global legal environment conducive to that.
Mr. Cole?
Yes, thank you. So I think that let me go to the point that following this two-day conference I have attended yesterday meeting as well, I would say that it's not a matter of the norm or neither the practice or even the governance model. I think that we all here, we seem to have enough information foundation to make consideration. I think that the way forward, we have only 2 points. The first point is that we need to work together to form as soon as we can the governance body at international level, in particular under UN umbrella for that. And with this governance body, it shall be able to have the platform for discussion among the top leader, and at the platform we can present the principle and feature of the AI governance framework to our leader in order to let them endorse all those kind of principle and feature. It is very important while we have a top political commitment on that kind of thing. And the norm, the practice, and the governance model we can discuss later on, as we know that it shall be adopted. Even with respect to the context of evolving of our society and as well as of the AI technology, which is the technology that evolves very fast. Another point that we shall leave the commitment to each nation in order to implement the enforcement mechanism. The efficient enforcement mechanism is very important with the aspect of ethics in AI. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Echeverry.
Thank you. I would say two things. The first one is that we definitely need to leverage capacities. I mean, we need general minimum capacities in all countries, and that takes a lot of cooperation. But also, if we want to talk about regulatory interoperability, we need to be able to reinforce the capacities of our governments and the agencies that are in charge of enforcement. I mean, we have done it in the past with pharmaceuticals, for example, and there's mutual recognition among countries. If we have sufficient capabilities in all countries to address artificial intelligence, then we maybe could move forward into a framework like that that would allow for fast implementation worldwide, which is what this technology needs.
Perfect, thank you. And Mr. Nimagara.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. My input at this stage regarding your question is that I think in order to have a common vision at an international level, the first thing we need is to have the incentive that an international framework would build. I mean, we have the UNESCO recommendation that is one international vision that we need to accept. But then following that, I think it's very important that we should have a context-based and culture-based perspective for some norms and standards. As I was saying before, there are specificities and differences between countries. For example, in the African context, there are some specificities that make some countries unique, and we need to take those into account. However, I also believe that it's very important to have international coordination. UNESCO is playing that role to an extent, and I do believe that if we have a good coordination by UNESCO at an international level, we also will need to have regional coordination, intercontinental coordination, but also at the country level, so that in this way we will be able to put that or develop that common vision. Another question or another important aspect, as far as I'm concerned, is we need to, for example, we need to have a vision that will enable us, make it possible for us to review things, if necessary, regularly, so that we may make sure that the solutions we have are suitable, are suited to the situation we're in. We need to keep up with innovation, with tech development, etc. And only thus can we build the right vision together and keep it up to date. So I think that is also a very important question. And I think really the main engine should be a common constitution of that vision regarding the development of AI. I really do believe that for us in Africa, we must have AI that is from Africa, for Africa, for example. We cannot be happy with something that is an AI that we have adopted as a technology coming from elsewhere. And this is, to me, an absolutely key question. Thank you.
Just a moment. Anjali?
Well, thank you. First of all, we are the most terrible panel ever, I think, because nobody took the 2 minutes time and we had a meeting. Yeah, you have to laugh. I also a little bit, but sorry. And you stay so calm. Thank you for that. I think our host needs a big applause for this terrible panel. Thank you. Sorry. So maybe that's then my message. We have to learn, and learning by doing. So 2 minutes? No, I don't have it anymore. But learning by doing, I think that's the most important message I will bring. And there is a new group, the what was it called? The No Border Expert Group from UNESCO. And that's, I think a very important group to learn there, the experience and to talk about it. So my hope is also for that special group.
Perfect, yeah, thank you.
My neighbor.
Just a moment, Mr. Al-Ghamdi, and then... Yeah.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Just the 3 points I'd like to highlight here. In order to make sure that the regional and local, let's say, guidelines are integrable to the international, like the UNESCO one, we need first to have dialogues on different levels, first within the nation, different sectors within the nation, and then between nations within the same region, and then we might have inter-regional dialogues in order to reach to this maturity level of integrability with the international guidelines. Second thing, I think we need to have a regional champion in order to do 2 roles. First, to encourage different members or countries within the region to integrate with the international best practices, and also to do sort of preliminary vetting for the local guidelines in order to be integrable to the main one. Last point, I think, the AI is broad spectrum, so we need to focus. So my recommendation is to focus more in sector-based applications like for the biotech, for example, the environment, the healthcare, and maybe gradually expand until we reach to full maturity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Solafon, you wanted?
So far, we have seen many policies, strategies, or guidelines at regional and the group of country association to maximize the benefit and to manage the risk and so on about AI. From my point of view, the United Nations serve as the most appropriate intergovernmental organization that can bring together those various fragmented government frameworks. In particular, the UNESCO recommendation is very comprehensive and inclusive. Therefore, it is can use as a starting point for the interoperability framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You want it? No.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yes.
Still 2 minutes left. Yeah. You see that we have a different level of AI readiness in each countries, and I think by this varieties of the AI adoptions, AI understanding in each country, I think UNESCO can support the formation of subgroups. This is some recommendation from me among countries which maybe have the same or similar levels of readiness, and let them work together, utilizing the detailed recommendations tailored to each group. I think there will be some difference of recommendation among the different areas of readiness of each countries. This is the first one that I would like to add. And I second many opinions on human capital development that UNESCO can also initiate, establish this kinds of program in order to make countries that is not quite ready for AI governance to understand this one first. I think we lack of a lot of human capitals in this area as well.
Thank you very much. I think that we have to wrap up to finish this session. So thank you very much for all the panelists, for great insights, for pointing out the steps forward, for also pointing out really concrete, specific steps that we have to take on. And it's up to us to work on it and to reach this goal of common vision of AI. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, the panelists and the moderator. You could perhaps line up here for another family photo of the panel. We are now ahead of a coffee break, which will be a little bit shorter than previewed. So we will gather again at 4:20 for next sessions. But it will be a working coffee break because we'll present some good AI practices from Slovenia. There will be two presentations in the lobby. The presentation of the Tray, a common platform for data exchange, which was introduced in Slovenia in 2012 and is used for e-social security, and the SMASH, a collaborative and multidisciplinary program co-funded by the EU. It connects scholars from 5 top-level institutions in Slovenia with 25 associated partners, Slovenian businesses and academic institutions globally. So you have 2 presentations in the lobby along coffee, and please be back by 4:20 for the next 2 sessions of the opening day. Thank you very much.
Ker zdajle sem na angleščini. Angleščina. Se slišva, ne? Ja, poj okay, ja.
Hi, can you hear us on Zoom?
Yes, hello, interpreter for the minister, the Brazilian minister. Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Okay, can we do a rehearsal? And our sound technician, can we stop the music, please?
Hello, can you hear my mic?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you enable me to the English.
Yeah, so you are the translator, right?
I'm the interpreter for Minister Santos, yes.
Okay.
Let me rename myself so you can read who I am. Yes, go ahead. So, Portuguese interpreter. I'm just going to say
Yes, just give us a second, please. We are really sorry for the delay. Yeah. Okay. So maybe can we just do a quick test with both of you?
I'm actually we're actually working from a studio, so the mic will be the same because we are working on a desktop studio, not individual homes or offices. We're working
We are
from the
already
office.
able to hear you. You already choose the English version, correct?
That's correct. I'm
Correct.
by default in the English channel.
Yeah,
Would you like
it's
me to
okay.
check the Portuguese channel as well?
We can check, but we will need only
Yeah.
English, correct?
That's true. Yes, true.
Okay.
We will only be using English.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we are able to hear you on English channel, so he can speak and you will translate in this channel, correct?
Sounds good.
I'm
yes,
sorry.
she will
Yes.
be speaking the ministry.
Yeah.
Yes,
I can see.
And
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
I can see she's not having a microphone on. Will she?
This is a good question for her staff. Her staff on this session, I believe, is Mr. Carlos Matsumoto. I think he is online, and
Okay.
you may want to ask him the question. Maybe you should also test the Portuguese channel, because if the minister needs interpretation, I'll be translating immediately before or immediately after, her speech.
Anyway, we're able to hear you. It's just a question who we will see, because for now I only can see her disabled video and no audio connected yet. So all we need is your sound and her picture, and it will be great. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I would leave it for like this for now, and we will wait to see if you're able to see her picture. Yep. We stay
Okay.
online.
Let me just post. Let me just text her advisor and.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So you need her photo, right?
Sorry.
You need her photograph, right? Her picture.
Yeah, it will be great to see her face while she's talking and you interpret her.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I think that instruction was sent to them earlier. Yeah. Yeah. Let me just double check. Okay. Thank you.
So we have like 15 minutes until the break is over, just to let you know.
Sounds good. Yes,
Yeah,
that's what
we
I
will
was.
start 5 to 10 minutes after the first named time.
Sounds great. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
No problem. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Good morning.
Paulo, você me ouve?
Sim, ouço bem. Ouço no canal de inglês aqui. Você me ouve bem? Sim, ouço bem. Yes.
Tem como você falar alguma coisa aí, Paulo, pra gente fazer o teste aqui?
Paulo, nós não te ouvimos. Será que você consegue falar alguma coisa para a gente ter? Ah, então ótimo. Agora ouvimos tudo.
Ah, tá.
Ah, então,
Isso.
perfeito. Maravilha. Obrigada.
Não, tudo bem. E você me ouve bem aí, Paulo? Tá ok.
Você deixa o texto a partir dessa parte aqui, tá?
Ah, se colocar, vai ficar desse. Tá aqui.
Tô aqui, Paulo. Ótimo. Sim, ela pretende usar, tá? Ela pretende usar esse texto aí, sim. Tá bom? Obrigada.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming back. We're now ready for the next ministerial session on the governance of AI on top of the global agenda. So all panelists are kindly invited to come to the stage, and the session will be moderated by Mrs. Gabriela Ramos, the Assistant Director General for Social and Human Sciences. She's, as I said, the Assistant Director General of UNESCO, where she oversees the institution's contributions to building inclusive societies. Her mandate includes tackling economic inequalities of income and opportunity and promoting social inclusion and gender equality. Mrs. Ramos also oversees the youth support agenda, promotion of values through sport. I could speak for hours about sporting achievements by Slovenians. I won't do it because we need to have this session. The fight against racism and discrimination and ethics of science, including of neurotechnology and the Internet of Things. And Mrs. Ramos, of course, has overseen the development and adoption of the first global instrument to promote the ethics of artificial intelligence, adopted by acclamation in 2021 by UNESCO's General Conference. So, Mrs. Ramos, it is a delight to hand you over the floor. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And it looks that our forum is also providing with good opportunities for people to connect, because they are connecting outside, but they need to come in. But in any case, we're going to start, and thank you for joining us. This is going to be a very interesting conversation from our perspective, because we have been discussing and showing from the very beginning of this global forum how the implementation of the only global standard, which is UNESCO's ethics recommendation, is paving the way to a conversation that is better structured in terms of what can we do, what rules, what tools to shape the digital transformation in a human rights-based approach. And therefore, I feel that we have gained a lot of insights, and we have heard a lot of comments and contributions from member states, from the business sector, and from many stakeholders. But here in this conversation, we want to bring also the countries that have been leading international processes, because the whole point is that there is also emerging initiatives in very different areas that want also to shape these technologies. Of course, we count on the European AI Act, which we are also working with you, Japan, Hiroshima process, of course, China, a very big player, the G20, we will have Luciana Santos, what the US is leading in terms of this framing, and of course, we are very happy that we have Nigeria also joining us, because there are regional processes there. So the question of this discussion is how all these initiatives that at some point might also look for the external observer as cacophonic, no? How do they connect? How do they, for me, they are all converging towards this human rights-based approach and fairness, inclusiveness, all of the elements of the recommendation. But we want to hear from those that are leading the effort. So let me start with Mr. Nomura Eigo, who is the Director General of International Affairs, Global Strategy Bureau, Minister of Internal Affairs and Communications of Japan, because Japan has a significant influence this debate in the context of the G7 with the Hiroshima process. I can say that even in Osaka, because you also got the AI principles in Osaka, but I would like to give you the floor, Nomura-san, so to share your views.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's a great pleasure for me to speak to you today. Thanks UNESCO for kindly organizing this important meeting, and thanks Slovenia for kind hospitality as before when I often visited here. As kindly introduced, as the G7 presidency last year, Japan led the discussion in the Hiroshima AI process to the agreement on the first successful international policy framework on generative AI that is called Hiroshima AI Process Comprehensive Policy Framework as the outcome. This framework consists of 4 elements. First element is international guiding principles for all AI actors. It consists of 12 principles for all AI actors in AI life cycle, including a principle for enhancing digital literacy to cope with risks brought by generative AI, such as disinformation or malinformation, and for promoting cooperation, addressing vulnerabilities in advanced AI systems. Secondly, international code of conduct for organizations developing advanced AI systems. It includes calls for information disclosure to ensure transparency and deployment of technologies to identify AI-generated contents. Thirdly, project-based cooperation with international organizations such as UNESCO and GPay. The fourth element is the OECD report about opportunities and risks from generative AI. From the viewpoint of promoting global AI governance through Hiroshima AI process, I want to emphasize 2 points. Firstly, we presented AI system developers with voluntary code of conduct. We believe this code provides clear guidance for them in advancing safe, secure, and trustworthy AI through effective AI governance. Secondly, this framework covers various AI-related stakeholders and intends to realize co-governance mechanism through their cooperation. In addition to elaborating framework, G7 also agreed on its continuous work for the Hiroshima AI process in the work plan. In this plan, G7 agreed to outreach the countries beyond G7 to share understandings on the guiding principles and the code of conduct, as well as to expand support for the code of conduct by private sectors. Thanks to the kind of invitation by the UNESCO, we have this opportunity to speak about the current situation to many delegates around the world today. I hope this opportunity brings all of you some interest in this Hiroshima AI process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting because you develop the principles, which are very converging, but at the same time also launch a process to engage, and UNESCO is proud to be part of that process. Let me now get into the two big fora that are discussing the international economic cooperation. I think that we have connected Minister Luciana Santos from Brazil. I have to say that we are a knowledge partner of Luciana. And we thank Brazil for inviting us in this occasion because the framing that they have put in the G20 is also pretty much in line with the debates that we have been having, putting the question of how to ensure that AI is fair, how do we deploy AI to reduce inequalities. And so, Minister, you have the floor. We know you couldn't join us in person, but it's great that you could connect and that we have been working with you very nicely since you launched the presidency of Brazil, and very consistent with this commitment of leaving no one behind. So over to you.
Bem, uma boa tarde. Quero parabenizar.
Yes, good afternoon. I wish to congratulate UNESCO for the initiative of holding this event. It is a very welcome initiative, in as much as this is a strategic matter and also a decisive subject matter for the world and for Brazil. We have in person with you Renata Miele, the ministry's representative for Brazil. She's the chairwoman of the Internet Managing Committee. I am very sorry I was unable to join you in person. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to accept the invitation to be there in person, but I thank you wholeheartedly for the invitation. We will quite certainly provide every support to this very important forum, and we will provide as much input and contribution as possible to help us take a stance by means of a Brazilian plan on the matter. As part of the Brazilian strategy on AI, we are currently updating the content of the strategy, And by coincidence, happily enough, we will be presiding G20 in Brazil, meaning that there will be several different meetings between ministers of this portfolio who will quite certainly be able to share with us all of the challenges we all face. So this very important forum on ethics in artificial intelligence is a very dear topic to our heart. The focus of the work group of the thematic area on digital intelligence and the digital economy working group, which our ministry is currently leading, the focus consists in determining how to ensure that this disruptive, transformative technology can be tapped and explored, harnessed to the benefit of humankind and human resources. We believe that, of course, requires that principles and shared guidelines be established, while also, of course, taking into account and observing the deep inequalities among countries in terms of the current state of development of this technology. The priority of our G20 presidency consists in building a fair and sustainable world. This is a theme that President Lula has always stated time and again in international fora. In particular, this reflects how countries in the global south will position themselves and be included in this debate with a view to building cooperation and investment initiatives so that we ultimately can stop being just consumers of technology, but also can become producers of technology. In artificial intelligence, oh, by the way, we're not just only consumers of technology, but we're mainly consumers of technology. We wish to also become producers, developers of technology. In artificial intelligence, this means creating the conditions globally so that countries can develop a production chain around AI while enhancing infrastructure capabilities, data storage, and human resource capabilities. The question being, how do you, for example, adopt AI in public services aiming at including the most marginalized sectors of society? This is an exercise in which we are currently engaged with the Ministry of Management Innovation of Brazil, and we have launched shared calls for bid from that perspective in public service. It is also important to highlight the ongoing debate on ethics, especially considering that it is closely related to the economic debate. The more diverse and the more territorially referenced the AI systems are, the more they are built on the international principles and guidelines of ethics. Ethics by design, solutions by design, and also security by design principles, privacy by design principles, the more and the greater capacity countries will be able to develop compliance mechanisms for these local developers. As regards the auditability of data sets, that is also an important governance principle. It is also important considering the explainability of systems and also the need to mitigate biases and other potential negative results or implications that are inherent to the very dynamics of AI so that we can ensure the democratic development of our societies. Today, we face a deep transformation in our societies, in our nations. We therefore need to be aware and pay attention to all of these implications, including philosophical dilemmas surrounding the nature of this intelligence and of the human being itself, and also be aware of the impact of the many applications that can revolutionize industries, reduce inequality, create wealth, but which at the same time can bring about several risks, such as unemployment, the use of AI to create deep fakes and or manipulate electoral or political processes that can undermine our democracies and therefore may be threats to life in the form of autonomous AI weapons, in addition to the many problems regarding the sheer lack of ethical parameters for the development and training of systems, as well as the lack of linguistic, cultural, racial, gender diversity that ultimately result in biases and other human rights violations. We believe that economic development, diversity and ethics go hand in hand. It is therefore essential that national legislation and AI global governance statutes be fully aligned with these objectives while seeking proper interoperability of regulatory systems and self-determination for countries to apply these statutes according to their stage of development. In conclusion, may I again congratulate UNESCO on the work it has been carrying out, UNESCO being an important benchmark reference organization in this debate. I have actually had wonderful working relations with UNESCO ever since I served as mayor of Olinda, which is a World Heritage City in Brazil. And now, in my current capacity in the Ministry of Science of Technology, UNESCO has been our long-standing knowledge partner for us to achieve the deliveries of our working group at the G20. Thank you all once again. I wish you all a wonderful event. And may I apologize in advance for not being able to remain for much longer because I have this very demanding agenda for the rest of the day in Brasilia. But I'm quite certain that you will certainly engage in a brilliant effort in this event. And Renata is there to represent Brazil and drink straight from the very source of this high-level discussions that are going on in Slovenia. All the best and warm regards to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Minister, and I think that you put it very, very wisely, the whole framing in terms of the inequalities of access, but also of development, the public services, the deployment of the technologies, and we are really pleased. Maria Gracia Cucciarini, who represents us there in the G20, was nodding all the time, which is great. And I don't know if Renata is here so that we can, Renata, why don't you stand so everybody knows who's coming from Brazil? Great. I think also we have Luciano with us, no? So it's great to have you. Let me then go back to the panel, and I want to bring the special envoy of and coordinator for digital freedom in the Bureau of Cyberspace and Digital Policy of the US, Eileen Donahue. We have been talking about this mandate that you have in terms of freedom, fairness, but also we have been talking how much the executive order of President Biden changed the conversation, particularly in the context of the Safety Summit in the UK. So how you think this leadership is going to influence also the decisions that are being taken at the global level?
Thank you so much. I have to start by saying thank you to the Slovenian government and Gabriela Ramos, who is absolutely a force of nature, and everybody can see it. Speaking of changing the conversation, I observe that you almost single-handedly have changed a big part of the global conversation from focusing on the technology, the safety, the security dimensions, and turning global attention to the ethical implications of the technology for people's daily lives. And we really appreciate that. You remarkably built a consensus of 193 countries in early days. You were way ahead of the curve in thinking about this, doing the hard work. And we so appreciate also that you've turned the conversation to impact, implementation, practical solutions. And so you are clearly a get stuff done kind of person. We love that. On the executive order, my colleague Seth Center spoke this morning and he touched on this subject. I think the best way to understand what the US did in that is it is the most comprehensive framing of the US government's approach to AI across the board. It builds on a couple of previous documents. One is the OSTP, Office of Science Technology Policy Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, which was largely domestically focused. And then also the NIST, National Institute for Science and Technology, Risk Management Framework. But what's different about the executive order is that not only does it talk about risk and safety standards, it really does what you have done, which is turn the conversation to the impact of AI on people. And I will note it basically has three audiences. The first audience was the American people in understanding that the US government is going to ensure that they are equitably included in the benefits of AI, because that is a concern in the United States of America, just like it is everywhere else. Second, again, as Gabriela has done, the president was very forceful in outlining the ways in which AI can put people at risk and a commitment to protect the privacy, civil liberties, equal protection, non-discrimination, focus on patient rights, student rights, consumer rights, and labor issues. And that's a new part of the conversation in the United States and helping elevate that in the international community. Second audience was employees of the US government who now know that it is going to be required of them that they are thinking through the ethical impacts of these technologies. In whatever sector they work, they're responsible for ensuring that risks are mitigated and benefits of the technology are enjoyed. To this conversation, third audience, international community. And I think it was a very important signal that the United States cares about inclusion of the whole world in this conversation and in the benefits, but also in building capacity around the world. So very similar to what you've done. Leveling the playing field. I've heard in this conversation, we've had a lot of conversation, hard not to be redundant. Besides commitment to human rights, there is a strong focus on inclusion, and it's got multiple dimensions. One of which is, as we've said, inclusion in the benefits. Second of which, as the Brazilian minister just said, inclusion in building the technology, in producing the technology, the design, development, and deployment of the technology, which requires skill building. And then there is this third very important dimension that Gabriela has really made a mark on, which is inclusion in governance. That it's not enough just to be enjoying the benefits of the technology. There has to be inclusion in the entire governance conversation. And I will say the United States has worked hard. Part of the UNGA resolution we're running right now is really focused on elevating the importance of inclusion in the benefits and turning the application decision-making to the SDGs. That's one of the moves. And I will also say we have an initiative in strengthening American leadership abroad as part of the executive order, which is building on the NIST framework, going to our USAID, United States Agency for International Development, in a very parallel move to you, very consistent in building capacity to do risk management around the world. So we are in sync with what you're doing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And the public now understands why we are so delighted that the US is back in UNESCO, because we feel you really belong. And besides being a leader in these technological developments and also in this drive for inclusion and for delivering for people, is just joining forces in a magnificent way. So thank you. Thank you, Eileen. Let me now move to the Vice Minister of Education of China, Mr. Wang Jiabi. The global conversation, of course, and we cannot have this global conversation without China. You launched this Global AI Governance Initiative last year. So can you share with us the Chinese vision to effective global AI governance? And of course, you are part of the G20, so it's also a position where you can influence these issues. So over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Ramos, for this question. I would like to thank UNESCO for providing this important platform to share our views and reflections. I would also like to thank the Slovenia governor for the hospitality. Dear colleagues, I will use my mother tongue, Chinese, to answer the question, and I thank the interpreters for this assistance. 各位专家、各位同事，全
Dear experts, dear colleagues, the rapid development of artificial intelligence technologies around the globe has exerted profound influence on socio-economic development and the progress of human civilization, bringing huge opportunities to the world. However, AI technologies also bring about unpredictable risks and complicated challenges. The governance of AI, which is a common task faced by all countries in the world, bears on the future of humanity. As Madam Assistant Director General has mentioned, Chinese President Xi Jinping announced last year the Global AI Governance Initiative, which systematically and clearly articulates China's position on this issue. The initiative puts equal emphasis on development and security and upholds the principles of equality, mutual benefit, and respect for the rights and interests of humanity. It also emphasizes making AI technologies more secure and controllable, ensuring personal privacy and data security, and respecting the principles of fairness and non-discrimination. It sets specific goals and measures such as collaborative governance and intelligent governance. The initiative also calls for increasing the representation and voice of developing countries in global AI governance and making efforts to conduct international cooperation with and provide assistance to developing countries. It encourages the international community to develop global AI governance frameworks, norms, and standards with full respect for differences in policies and practices among countries, so that AI can always develop in a way that is beneficial to the human civilization. China believes that the proposals put forward by different countries for AI governance reflect their own practical experiences and can serve as a working basis for building global consensus. China is willing to communicate and collaborate with all parties in global AI governance to jointly develop open, fair, and effective governance mechanisms and promote AI technologies to benefit humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I have to
Najlepša hvala, reči moram.
As I said, we are converging in terms of safety, in terms of protecting people, in terms of the rules. I feel that, of course, these are the headlines and the issues. Then, of course, we need to move into the capacities of implementing this. And as many of the experts here in the room knows, one thing is to define the issues, and then another thing is to ensure that the interventions on the ground deliver what we aim for. It was wonderful because, you know, today, Director General Azoulay, she said, great that we're talking Slovenian, because this is the cultural diversity. And if we don't have more countries, as Minister Santos said, I want to develop also the technologies. I don't want to be only a consumer. If you don't do that and the technologies are highly concentrated, you lose the diversity of the cultural expressions, the language. And I'm amazed by how fast you speak in Chinese and how slow we hear the English translation. It's amazing. So one day I will learn Chinese, I promise. But then let me go. And you will help me. Yeah, because it's language for me is not a tool, it's just a window to another world, cultures and expressions that are amazing. Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. Now let me go to Europe. And we are here joined by Minister Alexandra von Hofelen, I pronounce it well. And also we have Maite Leido, who is the Secretary of State of the Digitalization. And I'm so grateful that both of you accepted to join us in this panel. We also have Nathalie Berger here with us, who is from DG Reform, with whom we work also very closely. And you are probably ahead of what we are discussing, of course, not on national level, because once there is an executive order, there is an executive order. National framing, because your AI acts are binding. And therefore, I want to hear from you how you think that, that this comprehensive agreement on AI will be implemented, and how you think this will influence also the conversation. Minister, and then Maite, please.
Well, thank you very much, Gabriela, and yeah, great that you brought us all together. It's magnificent what you've done so far, and and also how we're going to continue to work together under the great leadership of UNESCO. And very happy to be here in Slovenia, and thank you for the Slovenian government to host us. Well, the AI Act is quite fresh. It's not officially ready yet, but almost. And that means that countries in Europe, so also Spain and the Netherlands, have to make sure that we're going to comply to the regulation. And it's based very much on the ideas and principles that UNESCO principles, the ethical principles have shown us. The things that we're doing, I just wanted to mention a few things that we're doing to make sure that we're going to implement it. One of the things is, of course, that we're going to make sure that everybody understands what the regulation is about, which seems quite simple, but it's usually not very simple. Because when you are a private company, for instance, in agriculture or in a company that's working in healthcare, if you're a public institution, a ministry, you have to understand, what does this mean for me? Can I still use AI? And if I do, how can I make sure that that AI is actually, adhering to the principles and guidelines of the law? So there's going to be a lot of work in terms of communicating with the private sector, with the public sector, on how you comply with the laws, with the law, and also our regulator, and that's just also work that we're doing together with you. Our regulators are going to talk to all those institutions in order to make sure that people understand how it works. Regulators working together is of great importance. The involvement of the private sector is super important. In this room, we are basically talking very much also amongst public entities, but I find it very important that we talk to the companies that create AI, but also to the companies that use AI, to make sure that implementation is going to be fast and also joint, so it's going to be interoperable. One of the things that we're doing is, apart from explaining the regulation, making sure that our regulators are working together, is also from the government. The Dutch government has made an algorithm register. We also made an implementation framework for public sector entities, which is something that we're going to use, and the register is going to help us also and help our regulators to make sure that we have a vision, a view over what kind of AI is being used in the public sector, and if this is adhering to our laws and principles. Wanted to end with one of the other things that we're doing, especially in the field of generative AI, which we included in the AI Act, is that it's going to have, we don't know exactly how, but it's going to have a great impact on work, on how people work, and on the way that we, what kind of jobs we're seeing in the future. So we asked employers, but also employees, or representative from employers and a representative from employees, the unions, to sit together with experts and give us advice on how we're going to see the working environment change, and how we can make sure that people have still jobs in the future, have jobs that matter, make sure that people, no one is left behind, so there's no unemployment because of generative AI. The future of work basically is something that we're working on. So that's basically what we do. Make sure the regulators function, we make sure that we're involving the private sector, we made regulation for the public sector, and we're also asking employers, employees, and experts to help us to make sure that there is a future for people in the workplace. Thank you.
And this is the kind of questions that we are all asking. How do you accompany people? How you put the systems? And how you invest also in the government capacities to steer these processes. Maite, I should say first that kudos to Spain. It was quite a drive in your presidency the last semester in delivering the stepping stone for the approval of the AI Acts and many other things. We're working with you, with Latin America and the Caribbean, but I feel there is great work going forward from this, so your views will be welcome.
Well, many thanks and good afternoon, and thanks to the Slovenian government and the UNESCO. Well, this was a great job during the presidency in reaching an agreement with AI Act. And now it's time for implementation. And I would like to emphasize 3 elements in this implementation. The first is that we need to be very pragmatic. We need to adopt the regulation with a very flexible approach. The reality is that artificial intelligence is changing very rapidly. Things are moving very fast. So we need to have this pragmatic approach in the implementation. The AI Act is designed to have a risk-based approach, to be technology neutral, and to have this dynamic approach, which is a high risk today, maybe not will be so in 3 years' time, or maybe there will be other risks will appear. So we need to be very, very pragmatic. My second point is that the public sector will play a major role in the implementation of the AI Act. The public sector is enabled. We have to work in the developing of computational capacities, also in data, also in developing, attracting and retaining talent in the public sector. One of the main shortcomings in the public sector is that we need talent to deal with these new technologies. And this is going to be one of the priorities, should be a priority, not only in Europe, but in all countries. And we also need to provide tangible, very tangible examples to people of how AI benefits their lives. So in doing so, the sandbox for AI is a good idea, but also we need to have public policies developed with AI that will help people and will be used as good best practices for them. And finally, I would like to highlight the point that Alessandra made at the beginning, which is transparency. We need to deeply communicate to people with AI means for them. We need to work a little bit more on training people, on making people understand what are the benefits and risks of these new technologies for them. In some way, we need to empower people in the use of technology. If we enhance individual responsibility, not just for companies, but also for individuals, we will have probably a better future for all. So this is my third point, the link to the transparency, which I think is key.
A daunting task. We have here Eugenio Membiel from INET. He's joining the Business Council, and he's always saying that the positive impact, but how people can be prepared to bring it over. And that's exactly the connection that we need to do, because it's affecting everybody. So there is a responsibility also from governments to ensure that we put the elements for empowering and for taking advantage and to protect. But not only the protecting, but also the empowerment, which I think is a very good element in this discussion. Let me go now to another very important region. Minister Tijani is the Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy of Nigeria. Indeed, I feel there is no way that we can be talking about these technologies delivering for all without talking to Africa. And Africa is having magnificent examples of drivers of technological change, but also great challenges. So what is your take there? And what would you think from the African perspective will be the platform, the global platform, would you feel comfortable to advance this conversation?
Thank you so much, Gabriel. I think I'd like to start by saying we live in interesting times. And I guess we should also thank you to UNESCO for providing a platform that is inclusive for us to have this sort of conversation. But I think to also Slovenia for hosting as well. I think, as we all know, the exciting part of this conversation is the power that artificial intelligence has to truly shape the way we live, the way we do business, and sometimes even its ability to shape how we think and what we think, which means our lives will probably never be the same again in a few years. That's the reality. And for the African continent, not only do we see this as obviously an opportunity to quickly leapfrog development on the continent. As a minister, the biggest challenge I have that I have to battle with is the fact that the continent is a continent of 40% young people under the age of 15. And in the country that I come from, 60% of the population, over 230 million people, are under the age of 25, which means whatever decision we take today, action or inaction, is going to shape the future of this significant amount of people. And it's also important to look at it in the context of the world as well. You know, when you compare Africa to Europe, or quite a number of other developed continents or countries, you find a continent with very youthful population still growing significantly. And on the other side, aging population that is also not growing as well. So the future that we're actually building is likely for the African continent, amongst so many other parts of the world as well. So our challenge is to ensure that not only are we participating in conversation around governance, but we can actually quickly accelerate how we catch up with the development of the technology as well. Because I think it will be a disservice that we do to the world if Africa is not participating, which means AI in itself is not going to be inclusive and robust enough. And that in itself will become a major challenge for the world, not just Africa in its own right. I think from the country I come from, you know, the young Nigerians are known to be extremely entrepreneurial and creative. So the challenge is not whether they will catch up with it. I was appointed 5 months ago, and the first thing I did was to launch a research scheme for AI that startups and also researchers could apply to. And I received over 4,000 applications, you know, which we ended up selecting about, 45 of them to fund. And we're also surprised at the depth and the quality of things that people are already building in that part of the world, despite the challenges they have with resources and compute power and things like that. So much is happening as well. Then the next thing we did was to say, if the country is not invested in artificial intelligence, how are we going to catch up when it comes to knowledge? So one of my heads came up with an AI model to actually harvest all the artificial intelligence publications in the world in the last, I think, 10, 15 years. And we use the name library to find the authors that are of Nigerian descent. Again, we found over 5,000 of them in some of the best academic institutions in the world. So we're now bringing them, about 100 of them, to Abuja in March to help us reimagine the AI strategy for the country, which we think perhaps is going to be one of the most robust in the world in the coming weeks or months because of the quality of the people that we're bringing to the table. But I guess the biggest challenge is in providing platform for all this innovation to thrive, but also ensuring that government is then able to provide governance and guidance to it as well. Because while the private sector is moving, while the youth are excited about being part of development, the knowledge in government and the resources being put into supporting AI needs to match that energy as well. And I feel like in conversations around ethics and governance, that's not just a problem for Nigeria, that's a problem for the entire African continent. And one size fits all won't be the solution. We can't come up with ideas around how perhaps we can have an Africa AI Council where we start to think about a governance structure along the same line. I think guidance from UNESCO will go a long way there. But I still think there's something in it for each country on its own to actually explore the technology and truly understand what it means for its own economic growth and development. And I believe that's the only way we can truly get a chance to bring the uniqueness of individual African countries to the table to help contribute to making AI more robust for the world at large.
Thank you so much, Minister. And what an idea, eh? What an idea, no? They use artificial intelligence to detect the talent that belongs to Nigeria. And then you're bringing them, it's very interesting. And I have to say that this question of talent, you mentioned, Minister, talent, because we need talent in the governments, we need talent in with our young people, with the old people, a window of opportunity in Africa because the promises. And I think that this is something I just want to put in the table, because one thing is to say, let's control the downsides, but it will be also so unethical not to deliver this technological progress for so many young people that can benefit massively from it. So I think this is the drive, and it shows that that Africa is very well represented. And by the way, we will be working, of course, with you. The RAMs provide us with very good diagnostics, and then we move forward. Let me then give the floor to Ahmed Alit Atib, who is the Director General for EU and Foreign Affairs at the Ministry of Industry of Technology in Turkey. The same question, Director General, how Turkey sees these platforms that are developing the narrative that is also close to you, because in Turkey you also has the national strategy that includes elements of this alignment with the human rights, human dignity. So over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to express our gratitude for the warm hospitality extended to us, to Slovenian government, and we want to express our thanks to the UNESCO for the tireless efforts for bringing us on this important initiative. Actually, this is a very interesting event for me. As a former UN staff, this is the first time that I'm participating in a UN event from the member state side. Thank you very much. And from our end, it's, as we discussed throughout this forum, the risks on the ethical side on the AI development is crystal clear for us. And also the risks they pose to the society need to be addressed through clear and agile regulatory and institutional framework. I think this is also a clear understanding. But at the same time, from Turkey's perspective, by keeping these values high, we need to also consider one important thing. Due to the importance of this technology, we need to keep this technology's ecosystem innovative, and we need to keep it flourishing. Therefore, by keeping the indispensable values on these ethical issues, we should keep this technology to flourishing, to foster the development in the technology. Therefore, we have adopted our nation strategy on AI, and which is developed by the joint work of the concerned shareholders and the stakeholders, representatives of the business world, the legals, the representatives of the NGOs and the governmental officials. And also, for this end, we also use the documents that is created by the UNESCO. I mean, when we look at the national strategy of Turkey on the AI, you can see that the ethical values and the guideline principles also embedded in that text. So from our end, I think there is three important layers. First, the national relevance. Second, the joint work of the concerned stakeholders. Third is the compliance with the international system. I think if we were going to sustain these three pillars, then we were going to have a full-fledged mechanism towards the effective implementation of the AI in an ethical perspective. So this is our core perspective. The second one, in terms of the risk, is that, as it is highly rightly mentioned during the ITU Secretary General's speech, the leaving no one behind. I mean, AI is an enormous technology at a climax of a story. I mean, it could be transformed into another tool, another misuse that will adapt or make it problematic for in terms of increasing the inequalities, or it could be an enormous technology that will create an equal world or foster in that way. Therefore, this is a critical pathway for us to follow, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have now concluded the first round of the panelists, but there is one more, because we have Minister Butti from Italy, who sent us a very nice message. So I want to have him also, because to get the round of what is going on in the international landscape, of course, the G7 is also very important, as mentioned by Mr. Nomura. So please, can we get the message from Minister Butti?
Good morning, Your Excellencies, Ministers, colleagues. I am very pleased to be here, even if remotely. We can build a better future if we manage and use AI in an ethical manner. When we respect people's rights and dignity, we foster inclusion and development. I congratulate UNESCO for uniting 193 countries in an agreement on the principles and values needed to make artificial intelligence a powerful tool to serve our economies and societies. The recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence adopted in 2021 is making progress. UNESCO is actively working to unite all the necessary actors to develop truly inclusive artificial intelligence. People and society must be put at the center. Like this, AI will not only help us to solve structural problems such as climate change or pandemics, but above all, it will help us to better respond to people's needs and wants. I'm not going to elaborate about opportunities and risks because you are all very familiar with these aspects of AI. We believe it is the moment to decide how and when to regulate and manage these technologies, as powerful as they are transformative. With a multi-stakeholder approach, we will have more control. First, it is important that we publicize information on these issues. But it is even more important that we discuss the governance of artificial intelligence in a coordinated manner and at a global level. Let's start by each of us taking responsibility. Partial solutions, such as those purely local or national, will not be effective and may even fail. They could cause delays in management that would then become impossible to overcome because of the speed and penetration of these technologies, which are changing work, production, and social dynamics, as well as participation in democratic processes. The private sector is asking for guidance. During the discussion held at the event that concluded the transition from the Japanese presidency of the G7 to the Italian presidency, held in Rome on January 22nd, private stakeholders called for common global rules that would allow them to operate with clarity and transparency based on shared criteria. Certainly, the private sector must play its part by following the rules of the Hiroshima process or the AA Act. This must be done in the presence of a strong public sector. That is why Italy's G7 presidency has decided to work on a set of shared principles for the public sector to help manage artificial intelligence. I'm convinced that this forum, as well as our G7 presidency and Brazil's G20 presidency, can bring about momentous change. I do hope that this forum will help us to develop this discussion that is as important as it is urgent. Thank you.
It's incredible because we were not foreseeing what we were going to hear here at the table, but it's so converging in terms of this need to steer the technologies to deliver, to ensure that these developments are not amplifying the inequalities and divisions that we have in the current stance. the video was sent before this panel, so we didn't call the ministers. You've heard all this. G7, G20, EU, US, China, all of them are converging. The point here is then, how do we make all these interoperable? The whole point is, because you are really focusing on the outcomes now. We used to just look at the technology. We're now looking at the outcomes and how to shape those outcomes, and you are looking at the governments and the regulators and the cooperation. How do we make them converge? Because it's not an easy conversation, but I think it will be important how you connect the European AI Act with the executive order or with the Chinese, and therefore, what would be your advice? Because you are leading international processes. Whomever wants to raise the hand, I will give the floor, not to, okay? In 2 minutes, please, so we can.
Well, it's not an easy question, but in any case, we need to notice that technology is a global issue. A global issue now growingly interconnects the world. In fact, technology, AI, increased the interconnection of the world. So I think that we don't have any other answer than to have a first layer of global standards for everyone. And taking into account these global standards, to build these global standards, we need a broad consensus. So my first element, my first issue is that we need broad participation in building these global standards. Broad participation from the civil society, from the social agents, from all people that, from the private sector, from the public sector. Only with a broad participation we will ensure that we are going to have global standards at this first layer for everyone. And then I think the world is not only global but also diverse. So we need to have different approach, national or regional approaches anchored to this global standard. This is a two-layer approach in some way, these global standards. And then this second layer with regional, with national approaches, we take into account the institutional frameworks in the regions, in the nations, the social preferences. We have different social preferences in different places in the world. We take into account also the level of digitalization of AI development in the different countries. And in this case, I think it's very important that we achieve to share best practices and lessons learned. I think this idea of sharing best practices in developing ethics in AI normally works. It's very useful for all these countries who obviously have different preferences, who are obviously diverse.
The no one size fits all. Eileen, would you chip in? Because Maite mentioned something that is very important. Is not only what we are aiming at, but how we go there. And I feel that this respect that we should pay for people that are not connoisseurs, that are not the experts, but that have something to say. And you talk about to have inclusive outcomes, we need inclusive conversations. Not easy, but how we go about that?
Okay, great question. So I see sort of two forces moving in somewhat opposite directions. On the one hand, we started this conversation here focusing on the explosion of initiatives in the international AI governance realm. And that is real and it's understandable. Almost in the post-public release of ChatGPT, everybody has flooded its zone, and it's very understandable because the rapid pace of technological advance and innovation has completely outstripped the capacities of governing actors and policymakers. So people are justifiably jumping into this conversation. And in that regard, we really appreciate the efforts of the Secretary General and the Tech Envoy to bring some coherence to this international community. On the other hand, I think almost a bigger thrust in this conversation is toward convergence. And I see convergence on principles, such as commitment to universal human rights, sort of look at the UN Charter concepts, Universal Declaration. Many people have said we don't really need to talk about those principles and relitigate those. We have them, and they're universally applicable. Second, I think we've heard a lot, maybe we haven't said it as explicitly as we could. These conversations have to be multi-stakeholder. Governments alone cannot do this. We absolutely need the expertise of the private sector. We need the care and concern of the private sector. And we need the expertise of civil society, keeping an eye out on citizens. I think we've also had convergence on this multidimensional concept of inclusion, which is inclusion in the benefits, sort of thinking about application decisions turning to the SDGs to make sure we turn this technology to solving some of the world's intractable problems. And I also think we've had convergence on practical solutions. People don't want to keep talking in theory. They want to move to doing something in the world. And this is exactly where UNESCO has led so effectively on all of those things, focusing on universal principles, multi-stakeholder commitment, really focusing on inclusion and focusing on the impact on people, and then building capacity around the world. And I think you're really a role model here. I'll throw in one other concept. I think another way you're a role model is choose some place on the spectrum. Don't try to talk about everything everywhere all the time. No one has that expertise. There is not going to be one entity that controls this conversation or is best placed to lead the conversation. So let's let go of that idea, carve out a focus that really relates to your mandate and the piece of this sprawling spectrum of ideas that you have expertise in and where you can really contribute practically. Last point is taxonomy. I do think we have a problem with taxonomy still. And part of the sprawling nature of this is people use the same words to mean different things in different venues. And I do think we need more convergence on taxonomy, but that doesn't take away from the fact that people should focus on their part of the spectrum, which UNESCO has done so effectively.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Somebody wants to pick up the question on how to move concretely, because I think this is the call. The call is that okay, Minister?
Thank you so much, Governor. I think one thing that, again, I've noticed in conversations, I was at the Safety Summit in the UK a few weeks ago, then here, and I've been part of a few platforms as well where safety and ethics has been the core topic. I think one thing we need to start to do is remember that this is also still early stages in a global conversation, and there'll be multiple perspectives to how people approach it. And that in itself is the evolution of the co-creation process for coming up with something that is globally acceptable. Maybe the sooner we start to de-emphasize the use of the word first, or the US this, the European that, knowing that where we're going in the end is a collective position on how we should manage it. I think the sooner we start that process, the more inclusive this is going to become. Because I don't think it's a race. It's not a race that someone must win. It is a race. When I get on this platform, I'm lucky to be a young minister. That's what I'm called in my country. But I represent the future of my continent. And I think about their future. I'm not thinking who's going to get us there first. I'm thinking, how do we as public leaders come together to actually be responsible for society? So it doesn't really matter who's there first. And I think as leaders, we must begin to de-emphasize that tagging, because eventually I think we're going to get to a point where we converge.
And I have to say that, of course, Eileen, you have been very generous to us and to UNESCO. But if there is something that is really exciting about having this common framework of the recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence is that it's owned by the whole membership. And it's members who agreed on having these definitions in terms of not talking about the technologies, but the societies and how we are going to align the technologies to deliver more inclusive societies. But then each country has its own way. And I think it's super important that we respect that, because if not, we will get there again with one size fits all, as you say, Minister, and that's not going to work. We have 5 more minutes. Maybe I'll give the floor, Minister, you wanted to chip in also, and then I give you the floor, and we will conclude then. But this has been an amazing panel, so please.
Thanks, Ms. Ramos, but I'm sorry, I still use Chinese to answer your questions. 谢谢助理总干事啊。
Thank you very much. Well, to build global consensus on the governance of artificial intelligence, China believes that firstly, we should adhere to true multilateralism. We support discussions within the United Nations framework to establish an international institution to govern AI and encourage the participation of all countries in addressing major international AI ethics issues and rulemaking. We should also increase the representation and voices of developing countries and develop AI governance framework and standards based on wide-reaching consensus. Secondly, we should uphold the principles of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits. We call for global collaboration to foster the sound development of AI, to share AI knowledge, and to make AI technologies available to the public under open source terms. And thirdly, we should carry forward the spirit of mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit. All countries, regardless of their size, strength, or social system, should have equal rights to develop and use AI. We oppose drawing ideological lines or forming exclusive groups to obstruct other countries from developing AI. The recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, published by UNESCO in 2021, has provided a normative framework for global AI application and governance. We should actively support UNESCO in playing a leading role in the field of AI ethics and promote the global implementation of the recommendation. Taking the field of education, where I work as an example, since 2019, the Chinese government, in cooperation with UNESCO, has hosted for years the International Conference on Artificial Intelligence and Education. These conferences have built a platform for international communication and cooperation in the application of AI in education and for discussions on ethical and security rules for the educational use of AI. The outcome document of the conference, namely the Beijing Consensus, has contributed to building global consensus on AI governance in the field of education. The current forum, hosted by Slovenia, is another excellent example. Member states should be encouraged to support UNESCO in undertaking more and more such consultations. Thank you very much.
好，谢谢。
谢谢. And thank you so much, Minister. You have the last word.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so we're talking about from convergence of principles and regulation now to convergence in implementation or interoperability. And I just wanted to say that I find that very important. And there, of course, there's a big role to play, both in terms of governance, the work that Amandeep and his team are doing, but definitely also for you, for the UNESCO. And I wanted to challenge a bit this idea of that there's no one solution, because of course there's different ways that you can implement AI and work with AI, but if we take it seriously in terms of the human rights aspect, the ethical aspect, that is not a solution that can be different from country to country. We need there the same words, the same principles, the same ways. If we want people to be able to participate, if we want people to be able to trust AI, if they want people to have control of their digital lives, then we definitely also need to come together in implementation. And also because the companies that we are facing, for instance, are large and global operating companies. If we have all different solutions, it will be harder to make sure that we have, implement the way our principles in the same way. So I would really also like us to work together as much as we can under your guidance in terms of creating large language models that we can trust, in terms of making sure that, for instance, in public services, that we use AI that everybody can trust and that looks, looks the same in terms of based on the same principles. So I really would like us to think of how we can also converge in implementation, making it interoperable as much as we can, because then we can together make sure that AI is going to be AI for good for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think this has been quite a trip into looking at delivering on the objectives that we already have set up for the technologies and the world, with the G20, with the G7, with the EU, with the largest producers of these technologies. From the perspective of UNESCO, what we take from us, because of course this forum for us, the Global Forum, and we have it every year, is also the place where we can enrich our thinking and be much more useful for member states. And so we listen to you, and then we try to translate that into something that is effective in following up, ready to work with each one of you. We're working with all of you in many places. The challenge is how to invest in the right capacities in the governments, in the people, in the communities, in the countries, and at a global level. And I think the word capacities, I have been hearing it all the time. We need to nail it down into something super concrete. We cannot go back to it was amazing, because I still remember when we started discussing the digital transformation, people were saying, yes, we need upskilling. It's very easy to say. Then accompanying the people that are losing their job in this transition phase and then reinventing themselves is not like an easy walk in the park. So I feel that this is where we will be heading up. Count on UNESCO, not only with the recommendation, but this forum you have seen, we launched the Observatory on the Ethics of AI, which is going to be about policies, not politics. No, that's not a good lapsus, not for an international official. Policies matter. We have the AI experts without borders, and we have the Global Forum, but in any case, the message is we need to work together. We need international cooperation. We need these conversations. We need to understand each other. And each country will decide how he wants to go. But at the end, as these technologies are global, the conversation also needs to be global. So thank you so much. They deserve a very great round of applause. We are in good hands with you. So thank you so much.
Well, that was another great panel. If you want to take a photo, just do it as, let's say, the last act of the panel. And please, Mrs. Ramos, stay here on stage, because you will deliver then the welcome remarks for the next session. Another cheese moment here on the stage. Great, thank you very much. And now we'll do the change on the fly like they do in ice hockey, which is another very popular sport here. So Mrs. Ramos, please remain on stage. And we're now ready for our last session of the day. Open consultations with the United Nations Secretary General Advisory Body on AI governance. I kindly invite all the members of the panel to join Mrs. Ramos on the stage, and we will have a fantastic moderator, Mr. Amandeep Singh Gill, Under Secretary General and Tech Envoy of the United Nations